Hi everyone, I have Marci joining us today for this conversation about social media to add to our social media course. You may have seen her highlighted throughout the course in the Twitter profile that we did as far as when we were doing this, learn about the platforms themselves and how to navigate those. And we pulled up some of the tweets from herself and from her school's account from Loyola. So Marci, why don't you give us a little introduction about yourself and sort of just your introduction to social media, how you got started and what platforms you use.
Great. So hi everyone, my name is Marci Walton. I am an assistant director at Loyola University Chicago on the beautiful shores of Lake Michigan. Beautiful as of now, wait until winter. So I've been in this position for just over a year, and I would say I've been active on social media for the past probably about 3 years. I actually got introduced through a friend who was on Twitter. And I said, that's just like for Kardashians and other folks that don't have anything to say. And she said, no. There's this whole world out there, especially within student affairs and residence life, of people that are, not waiting until you go to a conference to network or to bounce around an idea or to challenge one another. And I sort of got hooked. I am if I commit to something, I'm fully in kind of gal. And that's become social media for me, particularly around Twitter. I feel like that is the easiest, most accessible, sort of quickest way for me to engage, and then kind of go back to the real world of work and email and then pop back in. I'd say I've been doing Facebook since it came out. For me, it was senior year of college, but really Twitter is kind of where I hang my hat.
Great. Thanks for that great introduction. So our first question is focused on sort of the current trends that you see with social media with student engagement and what you see the future being with social media on college campuses.
Sure. Well, I think it's first important to say that it's not going anywhere. You always hear about new trends and you sort of wait for them to fizzle out. And I don't think social media is going to be one of them. I think it's going to grow and change and shift and mold to the audiences, but I don't think there's ever going to be a time where we say, yeah, we're just not going to do that anymore. I think some exciting trends that I've seen are using existing social media platforms in new and different ways to reach residents or to increase engagement or just to make processes better. My previous institution was struggling with getting like some recognition off the ground. Students were not writing recommendations, they weren't sending emails, it was kind of annoying. So they ended up creating an Instagram account and said, tag us in an Instagram post, write a couple of sentences, and that counts as your recommendation for like program of the month or bulletin board of the month or things like that. I think also something I saw, I can't remember the university, but they use Snapchat as a way to document their damage photos, because you can put the little black bar across it with the name of the damage as well as the room number, and then save it on your phone. So just thinking about things in new and innovative ways that really meet the students where they are, and where they are is on their devices. I think another trend I've seen are students taking over their social media account. My undergrad institution has a student who takes over their Twitter and Instagram account for the week, and it sort of documents the life of that student, a student athlete, a member of a Greek org, a student teacher, things like that, as a way to give, I think especially incoming students and parents, an idea of what it's really like to be on their campus. And I think that sort of flows into a trend, and also I think where I see social media going is really making it a human voice behind it. That it's not a robot just pushing out information, pushing out updates, talking about fines or policies or things like that, but giving it kind of a personal flair, knowing that there's a person behind that account is really where I think it's going. And if that means incorporating more pictures or pictographs or videos or other things like that of content and content management, to make it really exciting and not to scroll through a feed and be bored. You want to scroll through a feed and be excited and happy and feel like you have another way to connect with your community on campus.
Fantastic. And we've covered a lot of those points in the course, as well as being the authentic voice, how you set that voice, how you don't want to just put out all kinds of just 6 or 7 posts in the same hour.
Yes.
And so I think you had some really great points, and I appreciate the backup of that as some of the course material that's been covered. So the second thing is I just want to get your 3 tips that you would offer to someone, whether they're beginners, moderate users of social media. And these could range from professional development that you've used it, and you've given some department examples, and just ways that you have managed those accounts as well with those tips.
Sure. I think the biggest thing is just starting. I think there's this real roadblock, especially with Twitter for some reason. It seems like the people that don't do Twitter are like, I'm not a Twitter person. Like there's some sort of people that do social media, and there's this whole other group of people that don't. And I think first just getting over that mental leap, that you have something to contribute. Your voice is important, it matters. You can make the field better. You can push people, you can support people, you can be part of a community, and that matters. That was the biggest leap for me of just like, oh, I don't know what to say, or if this matters, am I going to make somebody mad, or they can't figure out the tone of what that tweet is all about. So I think just starting and getting over that sort of imposter syndrome is important. I also think that there's no truly wrong way to do it. There's not really a wrong way to engage, as long as you're being, kind and respectful and not spamming people. Just sort of, standard playground rules are attached with that. But there's not a wrong way to engage, except if you're not engaging. I think a perhaps practical way is really get attached to the back channel at conferences. I know that's how I take notes. I used to come to a Kuhoi or NASPA or whatever with a notebook, and then I would put that notebook on the shelf and never look at it again, and never remember what I learned or what that presenter said or a resource. So now I use Twitter as my notebook. I'm tweeting out information or things that make me think, or what I want to bring back, or I'll tag one of my friends and like, ooh, they just said this, you need to connect with them at that university. And it's sort of an ongoing conversation with myself that is super easy and accessible. And I feel like it's another way for me to contribute. So maybe I don't have time to volunteer, or maybe I didn't get that program proposal ready in time, but I can contribute to the back channel as long as I'm there. And frankly, even if you're not there. So I wasn't at ACPA this year, and I was on it on the back channel when I could be, and feel like I had a conference experience, which was kind of amazing because I never even set foot on the conference at the conference hotel or the site. So really get engaged on that back channel. It's an easy step to making those relationships really matter and mean something.
I should have added in our intro that how I even became, known about Marci and able to make this connection for this interview today was really social media. Yep. and was following Marci on Twitter and connecting there. And that led to us meeting up at NASPA last year and having a one-to-one conversation. And so now I feel like I could reach out to Marci. One, she's very proficient in social media, and that's how we met. And that's kind of the intention of, especially one of the modules on professional development, is using social media for networking. And so you can see how we even created this relationship and got to this point of the interview because of social media and networking. So we use both the online platform and an face-to-face connection.
Absolutely. Yeah, the past 3 national conference proposals and programs that I've done were all through people that I connected with over Twitter. 2 of the 3, I didn't even meet a co-presenter until 5 minutes before we were ready to present together. And everything was done over Twitter or Google Hangouts like this. And that never would have happened if I was afraid to hop in.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks. So one of our modules is about populations, and so looking at social media use through different populations. And so that module focuses on faculty, focuses on parents, and it focuses on just engagement in general. But really, parents and faculty are the 2 populations that we explore and look at how we can create relationships with faculty, how we can use and encourage usage of social media, not just not in the classroom, but also in our halls and our communities, and how we can maybe use that as a bridge or a common connection with faculty. And then with parents, how do we know parents are on social media, There's an article in the module talking about how, as generations, as each year goes, those parents are more familiar with social media and most likely using those platforms themselves. And so what do we do as practitioners to create areas for parents to be? We know they want to communicate, they want to be with their students, but they also want to get information from the university that way as well, way before the admissions process up until graduation, and posting pictures of their child walking across the stage. And so could you just provide any insight that you have about those two populations when it comes to social media and the ways that you've seen it used, the way that you engage with those individuals, those populations through social media, and any tips that you have for those engagement pieces?
Sure. I think a tip, especially with parents, is thinking about what voice your accounts have. So realizing that you don't necessarily control who likes your page, who follows you on Twitter, who follows you on Instagram, and realizing that it's usually not just students. So I think a lot of departments think the only audience that I am creating content for is for the traditional student. So just even thinking about that, if I tweet this, if I was a parent and I didn't know the context or I didn't know the history, how would that come across? What would that feel like for me, knowing, whatever the case may be, whatever the information may be? Also realizing that during an emergency, people are more and more often going and turning to social media. I know for me, the minute I hear something about an ongoing situation or a specific emergency, I go to Twitter first, usually like before CNN or before anything else, because it's often more timely and reliable. So having plans in place that if something were to happen, especially in res life, stuff happens all the time, emergencies happen all the time. So knowing that parents and potentially outside media may be watching those official accounts as well is something really important to keep in mind. And also knowing that I think parents are more and more likely to not just call your office, but engage with you through social media channels. So I just recently took over our accounts right before move-in, and the majority of questions that were posed to us over Twitter were from parents. They weren't from the students. Students weren't there yet. They were likely embarrassed that their mom was tweeting at LUC Res Life, but being ready to quickly answer those questions. This isn't a phone call where we say, okay, we can call you back. There's, I think, an expectation of parents for a quicker response. In terms of faculty, we have just started a couple of things with that over here. One of our learning communities is getting into blogging, which is pretty exciting. So one of their projects, both curricularly and outside of the classroom, is to regularly blog on a shared blog, which is really exciting because then we can use that for outreach to send to incoming students to talk about sort of day in the life of an LC. So that's pretty cool. And then one of our graduate faculty members who works with our assistant RDs who are grad students has a social media engagement component to his class that's required. They have a class hashtag. They're expected to post a certain amount of times, expected to do a certain amount of responses, which I'm a social media nerd, so it just speaks to my heart of sometimes pushing people a little bit to get into a platform they're not super comfortable with. But then also being able to support those students through that ambiguity. I just sat down with a grad student a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, Twitter 101. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't want to make a fool of myself. And taking the time and having that human one-on-one connection to talk through platforms, and also not assuming access. So I think there's some privilege that's associated with platforms and access, and everyone has a smartphone. Well, no, not everyone does. So knowing your audience and knowing access and having sort of universal design. So no matter who you are and what you have access to, you're going to be able to get this information. We're not doing away with email anytime soon. We're not doing away with the website. We're not doing away with pamphlets, but social media can really supplement all of that to reach an even broader audience.
Fantastic. You covered so many points in there. I agree with one thing that we can do as professionals is if students know that we're using social media, and in their classes they've been asked to use social media and they're like, I don't know how to start this, I don't know where I'm going, but they know to come to us, and we're able to have sort of that breakdown conversation with them. And so it's a way that we can bridge that academic classroom experience with our experience And it happened with me with an RA who's going to med school, wants to be a doctor. He's like, I have no need for social media. But then all of course he takes a class, it's in women's gender studies, and they're using social media. So he comes to me because he knows that I was using it, because we talked about it in with RA training and how we could implement our community. And I thought he would never use it. And then when he had to use it for class, he actually got to understand and see some of the capabilities or possibilities, if you will, with that experience. And so it was a great way for me to be able to use his classroom content, kind of my interest in social media, and blend those two together for him, really for his success in that class. So I appreciate that. Some great insights as well that you provided. And I think that the last thing I would just say before we sign off and end the interview is just that last, moment or last bit of information you have, or maybe it's even just the get up and do it kind of, motivation that you can give our participants today about social media usage.
Sure. I think, again, just start, just do it. Connect with people online. Find me, and if you're like, Marci, I don't know what I'm doing, feel free to connect with me. I also think it's important to think about social media not just as a mouthpiece and you pushing content, but a really amazing way to get some assessment information of what the experience is like for your residents. If you are, setting up different filters that you can see, okay, if somebody says this residence hall name and this piece of information, you may be getting information that they're never going to tell an RA about, they're never going to tell the resident director about, they're never going to put a work order in about, and you can get good information about sort of the day-to-day life of your students and the experience that they're having. If that's on Twitter, great. If that's you looking at Yik Yak every now and then, if that's you setting up filters through Hootsuite or other platform management systems, there's really amazing ways to listen, and social media can give that option to you.
I like that. There's amazing ways to listen. All right. Well, with that, thank you for your time, Marci. We appreciate it. Your contact information has already been supplied as a part of this interview, so they'll be able to connect with you and click for your Twitter handle and reach out to you as well. So thanks again and have a great day.
Great. Thank you so much.
Bye.